Hey guys, Major Cade here, and I got some pressing intel for you. But before we begin, I do want to let you know that the Double Tap Show goes live on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Link in the description below. I also post new content to this channel every week, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn your notifications on to stay up to date when new intel goes live. Now with that out of the way, let's debrief. Let's get something straight, and that is that Star Wars is way better than Star Trek. And if you disagree, well, you heard it here first, folks. You're wrong. Now, let's get into the tactic. The high ground is not a rooftop. It's any vantage point that allows you visual prowess over your enemies. But the reality is that the high ground gives you more than just a visual advantage. It also gives you accessible cover. What I mean by accessible cover is that when you're engaging someone from above, taking just a few steps back will conceal your entire body. The high ground also makes you inaccessible and gives you a better pocket of time to either recuperate or reload in case the engagement favors the opposition. Because in most cases, the vantage point will have both vertical and horizontal distance. That combination will take the enemy some time to cover, which translates to more time to reach you if they do decide to push. A few things to take into consideration when using this tactic is that the high ground, at least in Call of Duty, is a total trade-off. That means that for every advantage this tactic gives you, it will also take something away. The first one is that you will be trading mobility for visibility. The square footage of the high ground is generally small. The enemy on the ground can spread out and reposition, meanwhile your location stays the same. Translation: you become predictable. Next is the fact that there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. You gain way too much visibility. If you take your eyes off the enemy for just a single second and they get off the X, your eyes are going to have a lot of ground to cover, allowing them to slap you a few times before you know it. Repeat the game of cat and mouse a couple times and congratulations, you're now sitting up there with no plates and being forced to retreat. A word of caution is that the vantage point, or the high ground, should be used depending on the situation. By no means do I encourage you to exploit this tactic. It is as powerful as it is useless, and to someone like me, or any competent player for that matter, could use and abuse the shit out of your so-called tactical position, even though it's more like rooftop camping. I have a million ways to outperform every sniper in a window, and even more counterattacks for every tent and fireplace I see in downtown. This tactic is like a friend from years past, calling you for a favor by asking how things are first. It seduces you into using it at any point that you can, but let me stop you right there, Bobby. At no point should you hold the high ground for an extended period of time. The high ground supplies overconfidence and promotes complacentness, two of the worst states of mind to be in when you're in the AO. That's something that we talked about in last week's episode. You can check that out in the top right. The way to properly use this tactic is to take the information that you have right in front of you at the time that it is presented and then choose whether or not to engage from a higher position. If you stand on the high ground for too long, you might as well be standing on my axe. Get in and get out. If something is too good to be true, that's because it is. Like we talked about before, you need to take the information that is right in front of you at the time that is presented and then choose whether or not it's best to take the high ground. Something that you should keep in mind is that every time that I use the high ground, I always have part of my team on the ground, almost like mixing the high ground with the envelopment maneuver from episode 5. That means that if I pull off for any reason, whether to catch a reload or pop plates, my teammate attacks. If somebody tries to flank him, I can then provide intel. Therefore, it's more of an overwatch rather than a position of power. One of the most useful parts of this tactic is the visual prowess it allows you over your enemies. From up here, I can see everything. Even you, hiding in the bushes. Again, mixing the high ground with the envelopment maneuver is a deadly combination. Providing intel as well as suppressive fire is one of the many ways you can sow confusion into the enemy. If things get rough, the high ground could usually cover the ground fairly quickly. This tactic is mostly used when the circles are closing, where enemies start crawling out of the woodwork. You can easily pick them off as they worry about other threats, such as the gas closing in or whatever dangers awaits for them in the next circle. And even though I personally disagree with this style of gameplay, I do have to say it's damn well effective. Your all-seeing eye and your resolve will feel more like a lead shower rather than a single person's reign of terror. But remember, just because you're up there, don't be afraid to come down and get your hands dirty. One of the best ways to counter the high ground is by using the tactic from episode 1, getting off the X. As they recuperate, they then have to piece the puzzle of trying to find you from where you last were as to where you might be. This allows more time for your counterattack. Slap them a few times and then destroy them. Holding the high ground makes you rigid and leads you to believe that you're invincible. Better yet, that you're safe. Major Kate has some breaking news for you. A single ounce of creativity will defeat you. Recoil control plays a big factor into going up against enemies that have vantage point, as they are generally smaller hitboxes. When dealing with multiple enemies holding the high ground, it can be exhausting, as it seems to just keep getting off the revives, and the engagement drags on forever. It's important for you to know that the minute that you down someone, you need to start to cover that ground. Remember, you have both horizontal and then vertical distance to cover. And sometimes that could feel like you're playing a running simulator 2019. But that way, at least, when they get that revive off, just like a baby diaper, you'll be right up their ass. This is one of the biggest problems with the high ground. People think that just because they have the high ground, they have some sort of advantage. The high ground allows you visual prowess, not an actual combat advantage. Be wary of the high ground, as its seductive visual prowess has defeated many. All the way up there, where the air is rarefied, you lose touch. You forget of the many, many imminent dangers around you. Remember, General Obi-Wan Kenobi did not wait for Anakin to stumble upon him on that hill in Mustafar. No, he purposely decided to get the high ground because the situation called for it. And you should do the same. Holding the high ground will make you lazy, stupid, and unconcerned. If you pay close attention, this is the first episode where there are more reversals than there are case studies. And that's because I personally like countering the high ground more than using it. Even though it has its many perks, I can't think of a better feeling than drop kicking someone off their high horse. Don't let me find you on that rooftop, boy. I'll get you.